Many of you may have come across this story in social media where a rich businessman meets a villager who is sleeping outside his house on a cot, and the businessman asks the villager as to why he is wasting his free time and he could be working and earning more money. And the villager asks, what will I do with it? Then the businessman says, you can buy more land and you can have more people working for you. And the villager asks, what will I do with that? And the businessman will go on giving more and more ideas. You can have your own farming company or something like that. He goes on, and the villager goes on and on asking, what will I do with that? What will I do with that? Eventually, the businessman says, after that you can peacefully lie down and relax. And the villager says, that is what I am already doing. This story you might have heard of. But there is a potential possibility of misunderstanding in that story, because as we have already been seeing, things are not duality, things are always triality. The businessman is of course a representation of Rajas, but that villager could be either Tamas or Sattva. It could be either. We don't know. I mean, I'm not trying to say he is this or he is that, but I'm just saying it is possible that he is either Tamas or Sattva. We cannot say for sure that he is Sattva. So we cannot look into that story in the eyes of duality. We have to keep in mind that things are always triality. Why I am telling this story is there is a certain notion, unconscious notion maybe in many people, even in those who have come into the spiritual pursuit, that satisfaction is maybe the ultimate goal or something. So even in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Santosha has been prescribed as one of the niyamas, meaning one of the things, one of the qualities that the yoga practitioner should have and develop. And Santosha is usually translated as contentment or satisfaction. But there we have to explore as to what it actually means, because if you say contentment is the quality that you have to develop, then the question arises, then why are you pursuing yoga? What are you pursuing? You be content, be on your own. Whatever you are doing, be content. Why are you being a yoga sadhaka? So there we have to understand what satisfaction or contentment means. See, when contentment is talked of, what we are speaking of is satisfaction or contentment with the arrangements of life that we have outside of us. The simpler the arrangement, the better it is. That facilities that I need, or the equipments that I need, all the comfort that I need, they are simpler and simpler and simpler. Contentment or satisfaction is to be applied to that. So contentment here refers to the outer dimension. You should not be applying it to the inner dimension and say, okay, I have my life is very dull and I'm satisfied with that. No. Satisfaction is not to be applied to that, because the very fundamental drive that everybody has, which is not our personal drive, that's the very drive of, it's the very nature of life itself. The most fundamental drive that we all have is that we want to intensify our experience of life as much as possible. Outside, we may settle for smaller and simpler things. That's a very different thing. But as far as the inner experience is concerned, all of us want to intensify it as much as possible. We want aliveness to burst forth. We don't want to become dead. We are not here to become dull. Everyone is looking for aliveness. Nobody is looking for dullness. So if we say I will be satisfied with the whatever dull things that are happening in my life, that would be absurd. That is tamasic. It is not spiritual. It is absolutely unspiritual. It is absolutely unspirited. In fact, it is better to be ambitious in the world and accumulate outside. It is better to be rajasic as compared to being tamasic. In that example, if you look at it, if the villager is supposed that if that villager is tamasic, if he is simply sleeping in dullness and he is just enjoying the comfort of the sleep, then it is better to be that businessman, really. If the villager is tamas, it is better to be rajas, that businessman. But once you have come to Rajas, once your aliveness is coming out and it is getting directed outward, then we have to speak of this contentment, where you have to be more and more dependent on the outside. The outside arrangements have to become simpler and simpler. You should be content with simpler and simpler things on the outside, but not with the inner experience. So moving forward from Rajas to Sattva means becoming the experience of life becomes more intense and also becomes independent of the outside. That is the meaning of moving from Rajas to Sattva. Moving from Rajas to Sattva is not being, as we were looking at yesterday, merely becoming peaceful and getting satisfied. It is not that. It is becoming more intense, and at the same time it is becoming independent of the things outside. So the pursuit of yoga is to eventually make our aliveness burst forth. You can use the word aliveness or awareness or attention or whatever word you want to use, that is fine. But the pursuit of yoga is to consciously make this burst forth. Not because I have something, not because someone is doing something to me, not because I am doing something to somebody. Independent of all this, just because I am alive, that aliveness bursts forth. Self-awareness itself, that's just the fact that I am alive, or me. The sense of me itself becomes so powerful in our experience that it is fulfilling. That is, if you have to use the word satisfaction, then it is satisfying. You don't have to anyway label it anything. It will be self-evident. That is the pursuit of yoga. We cannot be satisfied with the dullness. We cannot be satisfied with tamas. That would be against the fundamental drive of life itself. We would be going against the very nature of existence. So satisfaction has to be applied only to the external dimension, not to the internal dimension.